Welcome back to the Umuco podcast, everybody, with Alex and Dydine. And today we're speaking with Arin DeGroff. She is my god sister, a woman who I've known my entire life, pretty much, back in Dallas. And today she was so kind enough to talk to us about her upbringing, her art, and also her involvement, her heavy involvement in social activism with a group called We the Movement LA, obviously based here in Los Angeles. Today she delves deep into kind of what it takes to be involved in social activism and actually what you can do to individualize it yourself to create the change that we all want to see in the world. But without further ado, please enjoy the episode.
Alex, don't cry.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for having us in your home, a beautiful art back here.
Yeah, this
God,
is...
you're so talented.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, stop.
It was shocks
Oh,
to
sure.
judge.
How are you doing?
I feel good today.
good?
Yeah. This
Nice.
moment feels really nice.
Yeah.
I'm trying to take things a moment at a time these days. So this is...
That's something that I feel a lot of people are coming to an understanding of, is taking things slowly. That's one thing that we've really talked about a lot on our podcast, or just in general, is just slowing down. Because when everything shut down in quarantine, it kind of forced everybody to be more introspective and to slow down because you got nothing else to do. And I think it's really been beneficial for us too,
Yeah.
particularly.
Yeah, to slow down and look inward, I feel like.
Yeah, being forced to. Sometimes I like when the universe is like, I'm forcing everyone to do this right now.
Yeah, this
Right.
is time. It's overdue.
Okay, Mom. No, it's
Yeah.
been a lot for everybody, but I think on some level people are definitely, like you're saying, finding appreciation for
Yeah.
slowing down and like stepping out of this like, oh, I'm working to live every single
my
day.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. Getting up, go to work, come back home, sleep. The same thing over
Because
and over.
it's very self-serving. In particular, I'm not going to just call out LA, but this sort of like this culture.
You already did.
But like, but just like kind of like this whole, like you're saying, just live to work mentality. There's no like spirituality in it. There's no like giving back, or very little anyway, giving back to your community, giving back to society. It's very, let me get mine.
Right.
And we'll see what happens next. But this is, I think, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
for some.
for some,
Yeah.
I mean, COVID is no joke, but there are definitely benefits
There was
to being shut down.
yeah. If you have a place, shelter, you have food, and like it's like the best situation ever. But then a lot of families are like don't even they're getting kicked out of their homes and stuff like that. So that also we can't forget, but also appreciating that we are able to have that, to have a shelter, to have food, and to work.
Yeah.
To have the movement, all the work you've been doing. You did not sit down, actually.
No.
And now as I'm thinking about it, you did not sit down.
I don't. This is like the first day I'm sitting down. The first week, really, I decided like earlier this week, okay, it's time to like...
You're going to take
not take a break, because that's impossible. What have I been preparing for if I was going to take a break now?
right.
Yeah.
But definitely the idea of, kind of the microcosm of what we're talking about, right? Like being, allowing myself to be in a position where I do slow down a little bit, get those small, like mundane things done, and just like reset and rest and recharge. But yeah, it's very interesting times. There's a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, and a lot of people that are suffering for a multitude of reasons. But simultaneously, I think so far what life has taught me is that these moments that are really hard and difficult are the moments that help us evolve and evolve individually, but then also evolve as a collective.
Yeah,
I agree.
absolutely.
A little bit uncomfortable, but
necessary. This is one of those things that like helps humans evolve. You know, Ultimately, I was gonna try to get
that's it. You're going to
super
get
in depth,
super
but I
smart.
was like,
so philosophical.
yeah, no,
Like,
no, but it's true though, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's crazy the amount of growth someone can go through when they've been avoiding it. Because I can look to myself, like working the job that we worked for as long as we did, it can really lead you to sort of ignore your own needs, you know,
And your own potentials too.
And your own potential. And then the moment you take like a week just to focus on yourself, focus on your own interest, it's like night and day what you can accomplish and what that sort of transformation can feel like and how it can affect other people.
Create ripples around the people around you, the things in your life that you're attracting, for sure. I think we like to unknowingly stay in self-sabotage, right? Like not honoring our truth. And that's we have autonomy of choice, but at the same time, like that's the way society bred us.
It's the fear, I feel like, and to step into the unknown and and just stay comfortable zone and not grow at all, because growth, like you said, it's hard. Change is hard, but sometimes I guess somebody on the podcast mentioned something we probably say all the time, and you probably know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger,
right?
And I think when you're going through hard times and just have that little reminder in the back of your head, it's like something that reminds you, okay, this is gonna end. And just keep pushing.
Some people call that faith.
It is faith. Yes, just that one word, faith. And then absolutely,
faith, not necessarily attached to like organized religion, but faith in the sense of believing in something bigger than yourself.
Absolutely.
So Arin, you are one of the most powerful, loving, kindest people I know, and you have a story. And the main reason we really were hoping you say yes to our podcast is because we believe our stories are important to other people that are going through things that we went through in our past. So by sharing it, it doesn't mean that we want pity, but we want to help people who are going through the same things, or even worse, to know that they're going to be okay. So that's pretty much why we wanted you so much, and would love for you to share a brief story to our audience about your upbringing, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. It's first, wow, thank you.
You're
what
welcome.
An introduction.
That's great.
Stories are powerful, and I have a lot of them. And when I was like reading through these questions, I was like, man, that first question about childhood, I could go like 30 different directions.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'll just give, like the basics, schoolgirl answer. I'm from Texas.
Schoolgirl answer. Yes.
I'm originally from Texas. August was my 8th year in California.
That was 8 years.
8 years.
Wow.
8th month, 8 year. Magic.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's where I know this guy from Texas. This is a brother from another mother.
Wow.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Yeah, quite literally.
Literally.
So I think the biggest part of my experience growing up was rooted in a few things. One being a younger sibling to a sister that was 10 years older than me. Secondly, coming from a mixed family home, so having a white father figure and a black mother. And then also my schooling, so like where my foundation was built. So I went from Montessori school to private school to public school, and then right back to private school for college. And the amount of people and experiences and different dualities and worlds that I was able to experience definitely shaped who I am now. And I think it is the direct thing that attached me to my empathy. I'm a sports kid, turned hippie.
Yeah.
Turned hippie.
Maybe like always secretly that, but just dominated my life. It's Texas, you know, everything was like football.
Sports dominated.
Yeah, sports dominated.
We talked about that extensively at this point.
Yeah. It's so crazy how far removed I am from that now.
Yeah.
Like someone the other day was like,
8 years. This is your new home, pretty much.
I've literally not owned a TV in 8 years, guys.
Oh, wow.
Congratulations. Must be nice.
Yeah, it is. It's. I mean, Netflix doesn't escape me, but
We just got a new one.
to pay, right?
Guilty.
Yeah, so that's kind of, I give you that like brief overview, because we could have a whole podcast just about that alone, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I know we have a lot to talk about, but
Absolutely.
I was born and raised in Texas, and then came out after high school in 2012.
Oh, no, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was it shocking? How was your first like year here in Los Angeles?
And you did move out here for school, for college.
Yeah, for college.
Yeah.
For my undergrad. It was not shocking, only for the fact that by the time I reached my senior year of high school, there was a huge part of me that was so ready to like evolve past what Texas had offered me. Like I felt like I had already hit my glass ceiling. I was like, cool, I can't grow anymore here. And then also just internal family things mixed with like knowing, and I think anyone from a small town kind of knows, like, if I don't get out of here, I'm stuck. So just feeling this momentum behind me to like shed all of that and carry on my journey in California.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. And more specifically, we have been doing, I guess, like a series of videos on YouTube called Black Enough?
Okay. ?
And it kind of stemmed from the idea that certain people, whether they're white, whether they're black, what other, any other ethnicity, like what kind of determines what black is, and that kind of stems into the issue of like identities, particularly when you're growing up. And so the point that I made is that the way we grew up in Dallas and sort of like our eclectic tastes, because you had said you'd grown out of this sort of this facade, this mask that you had been putting on for 18 years, right? And then you come out to LA and then you're like your true self, right? And that's not everybody's experience, but that is a lot of people's experience, particularly black people. So again, my whole thing about it was like, I've never really felt comfortable like sharing myself with my peers, particularly in high school, middle school, and all that. And then kind of throughout college, you sort of force yourself to come to grips with that. And then being vulnerable enough to share that with other people and be comfortable with who you are, regardless of if people tell you you're not black enough or you're, this or that, so that was a major journey for me. And I can assume that you experienced the same thing.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It's super interesting. And I've been, especially now in the last like 4 months of the revolution beginning, I've talked a lot about the like mixed people experience in America, like more specifically black and white. Even this idea, I've talked with other mixed people, like ones that come from a white mother and have a black father, and even the drastic difference in our realities in that regard. I feel for me how I identify. I've identified my entire life as black. Like I never,
because your mom is
because my mom is black. And Pops is down, so
yes.
But yeah, no, it's interesting because like I think of a mother carrying a baby in the womb. Like I have direct DNA and direct energy and direct everything from my mother's umbilical cord, and she was a black woman. So not to take away how anyone identifies, but just on that alone, outside of my personal experiences and my friend groups and how I was raised, the neighborhoods that I played in, you know, it definitely hits home for me to be able to identify as like a Black woman raised by a single Black mother.
Yeah, that's that perspective alone. And there's strength in that.
There's a lot of strength, and it kind of, she grounds you in the beginning. So even if anybody says anything, you're already grounded. Like there's no loud sounds outside that can break you easily. And I heard this podcast. I want to introduce you to her too. She's her dad is Congolese, and then her mom is white American, and she grew up with her mom. So and then she has this podcast she does with Black women in America, and she had this one interesting conversation with this one woman. Also, her father is white and her mom is Black, and they both were having a conversation, very open conversation. That's when I really started understanding, like what you just mentioned, how the experiences are different. Because, you know, when when your mommy is Black, you are taken care of, you know. You don't have, she takes care of your hair, she takes care, you know, she does all these things that, like, you know, motherly things. And then the other one, her mom didn't know anything about a Black girl.
Right, to nurture a Black
yeah, so she gave her all the love, but it hard to get the Black culture out of her mom, because her mom was white, even though her mom tried so hard to learn the Black culture. So really, both of those girls, the one with a white mom, grew up with more of a identity crisis, you know, trying to search outside for her identity. And then the other one was easy. She was like, no, it was just there. So I guess maybe that's
it's honestly, like, I'm so excited to continue to like facilitate conversation and like encourage other mixed Americans to like start speaking out, because there's not a lot of us, one, represented, but two, just like, we don't really speak out. We don't really say shit.
Not a dialogue, right?
And the more we speak it, the more it's normal. The more the kids don't have to explain themselves, you know, like, because the society is the one that makes us try to explain ourselves.
Right. It's the feeling that you have to justify your existence in a way. And it's a heartbreaking thing.
It is.
You know?
Yeah. I think on some level, even outside of race, you know, like, especially women, and little girls find the need. It feels often like every corner we turn, we're having to like justify how we exist, or how we're showing up, or what our truth is, right? Which, you know, is full circle back to, you know, being raised either by a white woman or a Black woman. You know, like the two most marginalized people in America were Black women and white women at one point. You know, not that white women don't have privilege and white people don't have privilege, but even under the lens of a white man, women are just right, not so much anymore. Like, there it is, the age of Aquarius, and we are rising, and so many divine, beautiful women are like stepping into their power, and it's great. You know, but it's interesting. Like, think of 100-year span of time. Like, there's people right now who have been alive for 90 plus years, walking this earth right now. Think about what has happened in American history in the last 100 years. You know, like, we have not shed, and we are not too far distant from, you know, like slavery. From Jim Crow, from you know, so many things. Like, my mom growing up in Texas, I think she was probably middle school, high school when schools desegregated. My mom had to go, like, if she wanted to like get clothes at Sears or something, they would have to literally pull up at the back of Sears and get clothes from like outside in the boxes. They couldn't even go inside. Right. And that's my whole mom. You know, like, so it's even on that alone, right? Like, being raised by a Black woman whose experience was all that,
you know, that trauma.
Exactly. So, Yeah, it's a lot to explore, a lot of healing that still needs to be done in that like collective consciousness.
Yeah.
But the stories are beautiful, and I really hope even this podcast like encourages somebody to like share.
And that's kind of the whole thing, is just to be able to hold space for these conversations. Because a lot of people are afraid, they're uncomfortable,
Right.
or they just don't want to just give the time. It's like, well, nobody's going to listen to me. Like, we all have stories to tell, and it is essential. It is so important, more so than most people realize, I think, that when you just open up the floor, then all these other people, it's like, I like to think of it as like, you know, when you're in like a classroom, and then you're afraid to ask a question in class, but then that one brave kid is like, actually, I have a question, and then the other people are like, yeah, I had the same question, but I was afraid, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
It's the same concept,
Right.
you know. And then it just breeds more understanding, and I think ultimately compassion and empathy for other people.
Yeah, you're spot on, and like that's what's happening in the world right now, right? Like, we all have these questions or these feelings, and people are recognizing, oh, like if I just share my experience, no matter how scary or vulnerable or hard or difficult it is, there's someone or one person or a collective of people willing to like hold space for me in that and accept me and meet me where I am. And like, it's like this weird thing that is like a universal truth, right? By like going inward and by like facing all these like really uncomfortable things. Then we are like able to expand, and then like our reach goes further, you know, and then we're able to like go to the next level and then do the same thing over again. And we just keep,
growth doesn't stop.
you know, everything is like breath.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. And I like, especially with the work you're doing right now, bringing people together all over the world, and especially with the podcast, we like to share different cultures and just, you know, shed a light to other people's cultures so that we see how alike we are. Because, you know, no matter what color or whatever countries we come from, we are the same. We're humans. And when we come from that understanding, we're able to not ignore each other's pain and each other's suffering or each other's joy. So I feel like by sharing, like you just mentioned, by looking inward, by, you know, allowing other people to share with you, to like listening to others, you know, we can be able to help each other, I guess.
No, we most definitely can. I think the biggest thing right now that I want to share with people is, you know, it's okay to agree to disagree. Like, especially if we're fighting against the same thing, fighting against the same structures, or fighting against the same powers that be. Like, everyone has their place. Everyone has their own thing that they can offer. I don't have to agree that Dydine wants to wake up and drink tea and I want to wake up and drink water. But we both know we need to drink something in the morning, right? Like, very simple example, but it's one and the same of like, we all have to figure out how we can show up in this time, right? And like then respect where people decide to show up. I think that is like the ultimate way to get to unity, and putting aside like ego and putting aside, oh, well, like you're not doing it the way that I think you should do it, therefore you're wrong, therefore like I'm not going to interact with you. You know? And there's so much of that been going on, but like continuing to go on. And
absolutely.
I want to make it very clear to the world that is not the way.
No, it's not.
It is a way.
It's
but it is not.
And I like that you said respect. To respect, because so many people, and I'm going on a tangent in my head, but it's there's so much disrespect. If you look slightly different, or if you do something slightly different, you go 30 degrees this way, then it is all hell breaks loose for some people. They will lose their minds. And then they lose sight very quickly of, we're all here working towards a very common goal, the same goal. I just may take this route, you may take that route.
You know, it's so interesting, and it's like a double-edged sword, right? I used to say it all the time, and it still bugs me to a certain degree, and it's something that everyone does, including myself, which is, we play on this idea of like, hey, you're doing something that makes me uncomfortable and I don't like it. I don't like what you're doing. So I need you to change. I need you to change in order for me to feel better. You know, like that is echoes everywhere. But then the caveat, right? The caveat is, hi, officer, you're shooting me. I don't like that. I need you to change.
Oh.
You know?
Yeah.
So, like, where do we hold ourselves accountable versus where do we hold other people accountable?
Right.
And that it blows my mind every time I say that, to think that, like, yo, that's still literally our reality.
It is.
Like, Dion Kinsey died 10 minutes up the street just last week
Really?
from my crib.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, South LA right now, y'all, is Portland.
Oh,
It's
wow.
been 3-4 days, probably even longer than that, riding and, like, back and forth, like, war zone between the cops and the people. So it is real. And I know LA and a lot of places in the United States, especially big cities, are like, you know, I can be in Woodland Hills and be completely removed from what's happening on the south side of LA.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Have
yeah.
no awareness of it, especially because on the south side of LA, who's covering
Yeah.
that? Telemundo? Literally.
Right. Yeah,
So-
that's an interesting thing, because we had talked a little bit about Dydine and I the other day about the kind of the sins of our community. So say LA, for instance, say Beverly Hills, something goes down in Beverly Hills, it's bad, and as they say, people in Venice, they hear about it. It's all LA. We're all kind of part of the same city, but people in Venice, like, I don't want anything to do with that.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's not my neighborhood, so I'm not really affected by that. You're not directly affected by that, but you neglecting them, you choosing not to care, to show empathy, to show compassion towards those people, that that kind of lends itself to this divisive thing that we have had going on for years, hundreds of years. So it's this mindset that you have to, in order to move forward and to see the change that you, or to create the changes you want to see, you have to get involved with those people that are adversely affected by whatever, even if it doesn't directly affect you, because it's still your people. You know, and that can go into like, you can go all the way back to slavery, right? Like, a lot of white people do tend to get defensive about, you know, if you say, like, oh, you know, your ancestors did this to me, or blah blah blah. It's always accusatory, but not, very rarely is it a collaborative thing. People don't really like to have those conversations. We know you didn't do it. You know, that may have been your great grandfather, but you can't run away from the fact that this happened.
Because because the country is still suffering from the consequences
and just
of
like
that.
you said, like, we're not that far removed from slavery, from Jim Crow, from segregation. So you choosing to neglect that and ignore it and live in your little pocket over here, let's say in Venice, that analogy, that's not going to help anybody.
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting, because on one hand, right, like, it's super difficult for anybody to be like, hey, you need to show up this way. You know, like, not everyone is going to have the energy to, like, go and march on the streets every night.
No.
Not everyone is going to do that.
Right.
No.
But even in that, I've seen people getting angry that people aren't showing up. But it's just like, you know,
People showing up in different ways.
People show up in different ways, and we have to respect that. But to your point also, right? Like, we can't not just show up either. And I think that comes down to, like, the bigger thing that I'm seeing everywhere, which is, okay, cool, people want to be like, do this, do that, show up here, show up this way, show up, do this. And it's all important. But what I'm not seeing yet, and what I, like, quite frankly, think I'm here for, and people that I'm involved with right now, we're a part of building the new foundation. Okay, so if that's not working, if these old structures aren't working, and we don't even want to recreate or plug into it at all, and, you know, we can march, but, like, not everyone has the energy to march for 4 months straight every single day.
Right.
And we can we can vote, and we can use all these tools that we have, but either way, right, it's so much bigger than just a Black issue. Like, yes, it is a Black issue, but it's also a class issue, but it's also, like, an elite issue. And it's, so it's a system versus the people, a structure versus the people. And as things can progressively get worse before they get better, people who have been deemed majority, who are actually not majority, but in the psyche of humans, mentally, when they start realizing, oh, wait, like I'm kind of actually getting screwed over too here, I think we're going to start seeing even bigger shifts. I think we're going to start seeing people who were scared to show up or didn't know how to show up, right? Like, start coming through.
But, and I agree with that completely. I wish people could realize that before they're directly affected by it.
I mean, but does anyone ever learn that way? Truly, does anyone ever really like? Sometimes.
I feel like if you because you have to get out of your own way and your own convenience. Yeah. Because all of it is inconvenient to you. It's so much easier to stay in your neighborhood,
especially if it doesn't
house.
Affect you.
Right.
And I think when you decide to join in and support the people who are being affected, you get affected as well indirectly.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. As soon as if you force yourself to put yourself in that environment then be directly infected, then I think that you speed up the process.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
I just my thing that I'm very careful about is like wanting to make sure that when people do decide to, like, for lack of better terms, like wake up, right?
Yeah.
Making sure that they have a foundation to, like, then build upon. Yes. And a place for people to be able to answer their questions with truth. And a place to be able to be like, hey, this is the skill. This is what I can offer. How can I show up? Like, y'all don't know how many times in the last 4 months I've had white women specifically come up to me just in tears. Like, I don't feel like I have a place. I don't know how to show up. And I'm like, even you just telling me that is showing up.
It is showing up.
You know?
I was going to ask you what your interactions are with allies, with people who desperately want to help, like this woman you're talking about. Like, what are those conversations like?
It's a lot of what I think we all need right now, like just affirming, you know, and like, I know to some people of color, especially Black people, it feels silly to be like, to do something as simple as like, I forgive you, or like, it's okay. Yeah. Or, you know, like, those things are really hard, I think, to give to the oppressor or give to allies that want to show up, that may not even be in this, like, oppressive state or oppressive energy. But it's really difficult, which is a whole nother conversation I'm sure we can go down the rabbit hole with. But if, like, within the Black community or even within ourselves, if we can't be like, it's okay, I forgive you, I love you,
I understand,
and this I understand, and I see you, this is how let's build, then like we're gonna struggle every single time to do that for anybody else, ally or not. But you know, it's been a lot of affirming in my experience so far, a lot of just like holding the space, no matter what their intention may be, just like being in that space with them. And if I have the bandwidth to do it, you know, but like being in that space and just like seeing them in their pain, you know, like we can't, I think a lot of times, like when we're in pain, we want to like feel like we're the only person experiencing it.
Oh yeah.
And like even in this place right now, like, can you imagine, like, we know the pain as Black people in America, right? But can you imagine how we know how guilt feels and how that eats away at your spirit.
Oh yeah.
And how like not feeling like you're like, especially the white woman right now, right?
Especially when because this is like their ancestors and they're benefiting from what the ancestors did, and the Black communities are suffering from what the ancestors of this country did. So both sides,
and our lack of connection to our ancestors,
lack of connection, all of this, the whole history, really the whole country is living in the consequence of that. Some part of it lives in the positive, like, you know, reach whatever the consequence of that history, and another community is just going down and down and down. But just recognizing that this is our history, you know, we are American, our ancestors did this. This is a time for us to have these discussions, to talk about this, to understand each other's pain. Let me know how I can help you. Let me know if your credit score is not going up, you cannot get a house. Like, this is how I can help you, because I have the privilege to learn all of that from my family.
Right.
How am I giving that to another family that I know that's probably they had the first kid going to college or high school? And I feel like the more people see that and, you know, hold space like that, like what you just said, holding space for each other, listening to each other, it will really, really build the country. But if we're divided, really, like, you both are gonna suffer from that.
Oh yeah,
Literally.
The biggest crime to humanity is not necessarily killing people. Like, yeah, that's really bad. Like, let's stop doing that, guys.
Yeah.
But the biggest crime truly is like the dismantling of people's minds.
Oh yeah.
Grabbing hold of someone's psyche
It's
and being able to
warping them, and then
In short term,
changing
in short term, like, we're talking about pleasure and joy.
Yeah.
In short term, you might be hurting that person and you find joy, you find pleasure in that. But that's so quick, it's gonna be gone in a second, and then you go back to the grumpy person you were before. You were hurting that person. Or the divisionism, when, especially when you're watching the news right now, it's a lot of us and them.
Yeah. Well, that's the agenda, though, right? Like, that's been the agenda for how long? With the Native Americans, with the Jews, with, like, name any disenfranchised, group of people or around the world. Like, that is the divide and conquer technique, guys.
Yeah, and it's like if you already, if you already heard of that history, a lot of these people are doing it, the people who have read, the people who know where, like Germany, where it was in 1930s, they learned from their own history. We're talking about this the other day. And now when you look at Germany, how did they come out of that, World War II and the Holocaust?
Right? Because they had to. Germany did such a great job of reckoning with their past. Like, they could not run from it.
No,
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how Black America continues to, like, reckon with their past when they're not still on their land.
With all the things you've been doing, you are just a 26-year-old, and you are a healer, you are an artist, you are a leader. You've done a lot, and your soul is so old that a lot of people, you're super old.
You're so old.
So old.
Such an old soul.
Such an old soul. Like, was there something that you experienced, like, in the recent years or somewhere in your lifetime, that you look back and you're like, just this moment here changed my perspective towards life, or I learned this from that? Is there a moment you can be able to share with us that, makes you, like, every time you're going through something now or seeing what's going on in the world, something that keeps you together,
Yeah, all of my trauma, and, like, being on the other side of those traumas, whether it was the experience of discovering my biological father, whether it was the experience of getting in a really major car accident, whether it was this not knowing if from that car accident, if I was going to ever feel the left side of my body again, like, pushing, without me even having any say in it, really, like, pushing my mind to limits and depths that, like...
How old were you in all those traumas?
Well, the father thing happened after the first year that I was in California. And
so you were, like, an adult?
Yeah, I was, like, 19. Yeah, 19, maybe almost turning 20.
Yeah.
And then I think, quite frankly, like, the accident was a physical manifestation of not only that previous trauma, but other traumas that had not, like, fully processed in my life up until that point. So what the accident did for me, aside from, like, a lot of pain, was put me in this headspace of, like, okay, you can either sit in this pain and sit down and like give up on life and, you know, like play victim and, you know, like live in doubt and live in fear and, you know, like ultimately just like change the trajectory of like your life and, you know, sit back and get fat and have kids. But, you know, like, but really, like, even just the idea of, like, being in an accident in college. I was a sophomore in college, and, like, my mom was like, come home. I'm like, I'm not going to Texas. You know, even making those type of choices to be like, okay, you're in pain, and you don't know if you'll ever be out of it. But how do you want to keep moving forward?
Right.
How are you going to be okay? How can you find any sense of relief? Right? So that's when I started digging really heavy into, like, body work, energy work, figuring out like different holistic practices because Western medicine continued to fail me. Doctors continued to fail me. I saw maybe 16 doctors that were like, you're lying, you're making it up, there's nothing wrong with you. But I knew that, you know, a month in, like I was losing feeling in my chest, then my arm went, then my face went, then everything. Like, and by year 2, like I literally could not feel, if you chop me in half, perfectly down the middle, there is nothing on the left side.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, you know, it's like, I don't even, your brain goes into like a different type of overdrive when you're in constant pain. Right. Like I have so much empathy and understanding now for people who live with chronic illness. You know, that's a strong ass person. Yeah. You know?
And I was going to say as well, I mean, having gone through that, particularly the car crash, it takes, and for your mother to be sort of like beckoning you back home where it's safe, that's like a safety blanket for a lot of people. It takes a certain type of person, certain type of mindset to be like, no, I'm not going to do that. But you already made the decision that Texas didn't have anything to offer for you.
Right. Like Texas, for me, I did not equate Texas to like security. My brain was Texas, run.
Yeah.
Get out.
Yeah. Were you maybe, because when you found out about your biological dad and you are an adult, and I think at that age, that's where a lot of us really can lose hope in life, because that's when you're figuring out who you are and you're figuring out your life, and then this thing falls on you, and then you're trying to figure out who you are as a person, and then you end up in a car crash. I don't know, how were you dealing with that trauma in that moment? Like, what was your tools? Like, were you able to study well? Were you like, where do you feel like there were a time in those moments that you had to fight through, or you felt weak? Yeah. Like for myself, there were, you know, I would say when I was going through traumas, sometimes I didn't even know that I was going through that trauma. I was just pissed at people or pissed at what's happening, but also finding those little things that makes you happy, or even just, you know, just not being able to deal with it.
There is definitely the range of like emotions and experiences and fears and like wanting so badly to give up, like countless times that I was like, despite how I felt about Texas, like when we're in pain, what do we want to return to womb, we want to return to mother, we want to return to just like safety. And so there'd be times I'm like, you know, I had a boyfriend, I had school, I had a boyfriend who was in the car accident with me. So like processing that together as individuals, but then also as a couple, supporting one another, school, a job, like working at like the magazine on campus. Like I think those within itself were like tools of distraction. And almost, although it was hard, and like I even to this day, I'm like, I don't even know how I did that. I just did. I just knew I focused on one goal, which is like, I'm not giving up, and I'm gonna get this little piece of paper that said I did it. You know? Like just very simple. Like it doesn't matter what it looks like at the end, just to like finish and go through. Because I knew that if I didn't finish school, I would never go back. That was not in my cards. And at that point, I was just like so over, because you know, some people like take a break from high school. I like went straight through, so I was just like, I'm over all of this.
Same, right? You just, I'm not taking any breaks.
But aside from that, you know, I returned to my tool of prayer and meditation. Like truly learning in those times the power of like our metaphysical and energetic and our angelic world. Like y'all real life, there are angels and like entities and spirits and ancestors that are like more than willing to like come into your space and like hold you, heal you, like physically. Like there would be some nights I was in so much pain, guys, like so much pain, just like crying. And I would be by myself and I would feel like someone, as if someone was like coming behind me and like massaging my shoulders and like releasing just even a little bit of the tension that I like felt. And so that tool alone was just like, oh, thank you. And then another tool that I discovered was, I think I discovered it in class because I couldn't, like the physical pain, especially like the lack of oxygen and blood flow that I had on that part of my body and on like the left hemisphere of my brain. The only way that I could like actually listen in class was if I was doodling and doing these type of like sketches. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, and I didn't like. I literally.
So you were not an artist before then?
I was a photographer, and I wrote since like middle school,
like
but not.
type...
No.
Wow.
So like, it wasn't until after college that I was like living in Venice, and I was going through some of my notes, and I had an artist friend, and he like saw it, and he was like, "Hey, you know, like do that on campus." I was like, "Why?" He was like, "It's beautiful." I was like, "Okay, like sure, I'll paint." And then I did it, and I was like, "Oh, wow, y'all, I'm a painter now."
That's fascinating.
That's amazing.
That's interesting. It's like I don't know. It's like a conduit for all your pain, like all the stuff that you're holding in.
That and I think it accompanies the body work and the energy work that I do for people. Because the paintings and the body work and the energy work really honed in after the accident because I had to become so in tune with my own body and my own energy. And how to like work in that space. So then I got gifted to be able to do that with other people. So my art in the sense of, I mean, all of it really, truly writing, the photography, the painting, body work for people, it's all intuitive. You know, like I don't even necessarily claim it as mine. It's just a channeling of something much bigger than I, and anyone can tap into it. But yeah, so tools, they are very important. And then, you know, there's the whole like balance of, oh, okay, now I have tools, but being so used to pain and trauma that you want to sit in that pain and trauma. And then going through the healing of that and being like, why am I self-sabotaging? Like,
not even knowing that you deserve to be taken care of.
Exactly. And then like being able to receive that, like the layers are so real. So real.
True. Tell me about it.
No, it is a serious,
I feel you, girl.
It's a serious process to get through that.
It is.
Especially when you look at it for what it is and you actually are able to see those layers there.
Right.
Like you don't know how deep those things are until you face it. Like you stare face to face it.
Yeah, and you have to, and it's I mean, here's the thing, like our feelings and how we feel in our body, like that is our most natural state. So like that's my guide always. If I'm doing something or if I'm around somebody or, you know, whatever
and
it
your
is.
gut tells you.
Right, my gut or my body or something is just like, I don't feel good. This does not feel good. Like exercising that muscle to be able to just simply listen to that voice.
Right.
You know, that's a tool within itself.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
One that a lot of people unfortunately ignore, but that's the guiding thing. If you can just quiet your mind, quiet like the extra, or what's the id? I'm thinking like the psychological stuff. You just quiet that and then just hone into that. You'll live a pretty balanced life.
Bliss life.
It's a like a form of non-attachment, right? So
Absolutely.
Being able to be like, cool, I'm experiencing this, I'm thinking this. Like I call it like Marie Kondo yourself. Like, thank you. I don't want you anymore.
I know. Enough.
I'm putting you in this pile of things that don't serve me. It's a fun, being human is fun, you know, like
it
when
is
you
fun, and finding out all these things about ourselves and changing and evolving, and it's a journey. And when you embrace it, I feel like it becomes beautiful.
it becomes beautiful, and you begin
Yeah.
to like learn to laugh at the things that are a little bit harder, and because
Oh,
like their use, you know, like there was a second accident that I ended up being in like after college. Wasn't near serious, like no, I wasn't hurt, nobody was hurt.
So that one was like,
yeah,
I've been through this, I'm fine. Yes.
it was one being like, wow, I've gone through this, like I know
Yeah.
how to call the insurance company, and I know how to do this, and I know how to like talk to a lawyer if I need one, and you know, just all these other tools that I got just off precedent of like being in that experience. But no, just even knowing, like anyone, of course, like you get hit or an accident, you're a fall or whatever it is, you get a speeding ticket, like you're like, dang it. and so, but this is the thing, like we have these moments no matter what it is, but just an unwanted experience, right? And then we start holding on to like how unwanted it is, and then we start building story around this unwanted thing, right? And then by that point we've already done all that, and we're out of the present moment. And so all these things in our present moment is like happening to us and unfolding, and we're still stuck on, but I was in an accident 4 hours ago. So I knew when that happened, like, okay, cool, I may feel some things in the next coming days. So thinking future just a little bit, enough to like prepare myself and to equip myself. But then also being like, you know what, in my experience in the past, I know that a blessing can come from this, but I have to choose to see and be open to there being a blessing. And then when I let go of that, I can bring myself back to this present moment, and that's exactly what happened from that accident, you
That's
know?
interesting.
I love that.
Yeah, just like this
Perspective.
Yeah, perspective is great.
It is great. And someone, I think was my meditation teacher, once told me, because there were times, I think, when I was writing my book, it was the first time I looked back on my entire life, and like in a detailed way, and I was like, is that me? Like, how did I do that? And then I think it created like a lot of anxiety and trauma from then. And then I started a meditation class, and then through the meditation class, I remember I said, because we say the universe, you know, puts everything on there because you can handle it. And I was like, why would the universe do this to me? Like, I don't get it. Why me?
That's my favorite question. Yo, that's my favorite question.
Yeah, and they said, you know what? He said one thing is like, everything happened. It did not happen to you. It happened for you, to become who you are and help other people and be a tool for you that will guide you throughout your lifetime.
Living sacrifices, yo.
Yeah, and then that's when I started seeing it as like, wait a minute, I shouldn't be the victim of what happened to me. You know, like it happened, but now, like you said, the second accident happened. You were able to look at it and be like, okay, I'm alive now. It happened, but I'm alive. Like seeing that first, like blessing, and the gratitude, and then just use it as, you know,
right,
as a tool for you that guides you through your lifetime. And even now, I feel like with what's happening, it's easy for you than most people to go out and protest and experience all the things that are happening in the streets, and all the trauma and everything, and then come back home and realize, like, we realize that's happening, but I have to be strong to be able to keep going. So how am I going to recharge? Right. And I feel like a lot of people don't have that skill. So
I don't think everyone has a lot of proper tools. And honestly, I don't even know if it's a skill, because there's some days that I get home and I'm like, I'm sucking at this. Like, and I just like lay here and I'm just like staring at the ceiling, like, oh.
That's a tool.
You know, but no, truly, it is a tool. And I think the most important thing for anybody to know right now, and this is something a mentor told me like 2 years ago, was like, you know, Arin, a few adults older than myself have shared this with me, but they're like, you know, things always get worse before they get better.
Yeah.
And, you know, some people hear that and they're like, negative, da, da, da. But it's true. It's true. And like, you know, my mentor told me she was like, you have to kind of like lower your bar, like if it's on a sliding scale of like grace for yourself, right? Like you have to sometimes be okay with that. The only thing that you not being okay, but sometimes being like, okay, the only thing I accomplished today was being able to like get out of bed and change my clothes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know, like
that's a huge
that's a huge accomplishment.
It is.
You know, like
sometimes,
sometimes.
when there's just so much weight on you, and you can feel it, and even you come back home and you stare at the ceiling and then feel kind of bad about what you may think you didn't do or weren't able to do, but the fact that you even got up and just showed up, like that speaks volumes. And some days that is the most you can do. You know?
I think the thing that I keep returning to in all of this is, you know, it's like weird because like we're in Corona or whatever, but like the dire need for community, the dire need for like friendship and kinship and partnership, whatever that may look like, but just to be able to process, you know, with someone or a group of people, so you feel affirmed, so you feel seen, so you feel heard. Because when we don't bring in that aspect into our realities, then we like start cycling and looping in our own self-sabotage and our, and then it's a slippery slope.
It's an echo chamber of your own thoughts that eventually perpetuate itself into reality, and then it manifests itself in physical ways, more emotional ways that you don't even fully understand. So community, that is, and it's uplifting, you know, and you have people who are willing to show that compassion and, like we've spoken before, have that common goal. It is only it's only uplifting, it's only helpful past that point.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
It is.
That deserves
Life,
like
y'all.
a big breath.
Life, y'all.
You know?
Yeah, it does.
That's honestly, that's my favorite tool. Like breath. Like being able to just like return to that. Even if I can't do any of the other things. And actually, this is something I was going to share earlier as well. What I love to do with people, whether it's a speaking engagement, whether I'm out protesting and talking to people, even with you guys, you know, two things specifically. One, breathing with everyone so we can like lock in with each other's energy, so we can ground and like move forward with a bit more, not as like, the shit is happening, you know, like to ground ourselves in the present moment with all of us, you know, in the experience. But also I do this game with people. I call it a game. It's literally just me asking people questions, but I play this game that no one's ever heard of or done before. But I like to just like give people perspective. So like, okay, raise your hand if in the last 4 months you've been really, really sad. I make everyone raise their hand. Everyone look around. Right. Raise your hand if in the last 4 months you've felt confused and you didn't know how to show up. Raise your hand. Look around. Raise your hand if you've experienced joy. Raise your hand. You know, like asking these type of questions and making people, the hundreds of people or the thousands of people that are standing there, see like, hey, like on the simplest of our existences, right? Like we are all experiencing these type of emotions and these type of, you know, just like inner battles from our outside world and outside world creating inner battles. And for people to be able to just see like, oh, wait, like I'm actually not alone in this. Like, cool. Hey, new friend.
Exactly. And sometimes that's all it takes to get the ball rolling for some people. It's like, oh, of course. We get so caught up with ourselves, especially when we're by ourselves physically. When you can just see that another person is feeling something, it's like, oh, of course. Duh. You know? And then it's, for me personally, I immediately just get a greater sense of connection, and it's like it's a safe space. It's a safe space to just be human, to feel your stuff, feel your feels.
Yeah, feel your feels and do it anyway.
It's a beautiful sentence. I like that. No, that touches me. Touches me right in this area.
It does.
In the heart space.
Yeah. So, Arin, what does vulnerability look for you? Like, what do you, when you think of vulnerability, what do you think? What comes in your mind?
First word is like not even a word. It's like like gulp, you know, vulnerability. No, it's man, vulnerability. I think it's like another way of saying grace. You know, not like saying grace, but like embodying grace with yourself and with other people. I think vulnerability is getting uncomfortable. I think vulnerability, if anything, is more that, you know, being able to acknowledge whatever like contrasting experiences that we're having inside of us or outside of us.
Right.
And then being able to like dig into it. Vulnerability, it's, I think, probably the most challenging thing for people, especially in the Black community. It's like weird because it depends on the degree and like where it's placed, right? Like I think vulnerability, Black people, for example, right, are vulnerable when we dance and when we sing and when we move and when we create, like that's vulnerability to like show up and even express that, right? But then on a more interpersonal level, right, like still working through vulnerability in an interpersonal relationship, like hey, I didn't really like that, or hey, that made me like feel some type of way, like can we talk about it? That's a different level of vulnerability. Even then, being vulnerable enough to be like, okay, cool, we're having this thing that we're working through. How do I hold myself accountable? You know, so accountability, grace, like acceptance of like the unknown. And you know, just like cojones, like having the cojones to like.
Absolutely. And you know, this kind of came to me sometime in college about vulnerability. I kind of separated it for a long time with like physical vulnerability versus like emotional vulnerability. And this is for me personally with like relationships or maybe a girl I was seeing or even friendship. I got really good, or I thought I did, at like emotional vulnerability just because I allowed myself to be present with that person. I trusted that person with myself. But then when it came to physical vulnerability, and like holding physical space with people, I found it like a challenging thing. And it confused me for so long why I was so, and I still don't fully understand it, but I feel like I've worked through it considerably more. But it was such a strange thing. I felt uncomfortable like being like this close to somebody. And, you know, it was a strange thing. Maybe it's because like they were in my personal space. I didn't know how to interact with them in that way. But it's such a fascinating thing for me, you know, just being comfortable with yourself in whatever way with whoever, you know. I think that's a very fascinating thing.
It is.
Yeah, like being able to become aware and vulnerable to your own sensitivities, right? You know, like everything is, like when it comes to your example, right? Like everything is energy. You know, like our bodies are going to tell us before. Like there's some people that I can be like super up close to, like, hey,
I know some people
no
are
issue.
touchy, other people I'm like, no, I'm not touchy, and I don't know why. I didn't know what it was, and I was like, I'm not, like, and then other people I'll be like, oh, hi,
come here. Yeah, it's real.
Yeah.
I was just talking to a friend about this last night. I was like, you know, there's sometimes even a grocery store, like someone will stand behind me with like something, and I literally will get my things and move to a whole different lane. Just like, you know, and it's people and energies and things are sticky.
It's crazy. So my mom doesn't know about energy, but when we were growing up, she was used blood. She would say, "Oh my God, that person has bad blood." Like that's blood. Not blood. No. That's bad blood. Yeah. So, but I think that's what she meant. For sure. The energy is now sinking in. Yeah.
Hey, bad blood. Something. Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I love that.
And you said you've been involved for 4 months.
Yeah, it's been about 4 months. So
4 months with We the Movement LA.
Yes.
How and when did you get involved in this?
So, okay, so the riots, the first like LA riots, not in the 60s, but the ones that happened this year in 2020,
2020.
Really started going down like May 30th, like that weekend, over near Fairfax, over near Pan Pacific Park. I was actually celebrating a friend's birthday in Idlewild, California, so like up in the mountains a little bit, and I mean, it was honestly a blessing to even like be able to get away and do that. Like, I think Corona we had already been in Corona, and it was like, so I was like, oh, I have friends still, like, amazing. So yeah, no, we were there celebrating and really just like grounding and being in nature, which ended up, I was like, you know, Saturday, none of us were on social media, and then that night we like kind of tapped back in and then saw everything that was happening in LA, and we were like, whoa, what are we about to like walk back into? And then we were like, okay, gratitude, number one, for just like the universe putting us here to be able to just like really, really like get rooted in who we are and how we want to keep moving forward. And I was just like, something that we've just all been prepared and equipped for something, not knowing at all what was coming, but just intuitively, like we all like shared that feeling. So then fast forward, that was like Saturday, Sunday. On Tuesday, on Monday, I was here at my house with one of my partners, and we were like just talking back and forth and feeling like, okay, like let's just go see for ourselves, you know, what's going on outside. Like the news is too overwhelming. We also like already know the agenda of, you know, mainstream media. So that following day on Tuesday, we went to Hollywood, had a meeting at in Hollywood, like kind of main crossroads, and we knew that YG had called a protest that day in Hollywood, so there was like tons of people out there. After the meeting, it was like beautiful, just divine timing of like walking out of the building and the front of the protest being like literally right there. It was like door opens, and then I just start seeing people like trickle past me. So for the first maybe like hour or so, we just like walked and observed, and like, I mean, as soon as I got out there and I saw where like just the synchronicity of like being right there, I just was like, okay, God, like, haha. I see what you're doing here. But no, for the first hour or so, we walked and observed, and it was very like the energy outside was so weird, and people were still at that time just like, yo, like, what do we do? I kind of recognized, and the person that I was with recognized that there wasn't anyone like really like leading. There was a few people that were like kind of doing things. There was easily like 2,000 people behind us. Yeah, easily. And we then had found out, okay, cool, YG didn't even show up. So you know, and then so we were going down Hollywood Boulevard, we were like passing the 101, and that's kind of when we started just stepping in, and there was a few other gentlemen out there like kind of calling the shots, making sure people were safe, and just kind of out of nature.
Because it was not organized, right?
No, it was not organized. It was not an organized protest. There was
people just showed up.
People just showed up and just started walking and marching.
Enough is enough.
Enough
pretty
is
much.
Right, that was beautiful within itself. But there was at one point someone that was like trying to go on the freeway, and we were like, no, let's not do that. So we just kind of created a system on the fly in that moment with the people that were there. And then by the end of it, I was like, yo, do we know each other? They were like, no, we just met. I had seen maybe like a few people that I knew. And then really by the end of that week, we had 3 other protests together. We broke, like, we have right now like the second record of like the largest protest in LA. We've done, I mean, so after that first week alone, like we broke that record. YG came and broke it that Saturday with another Hollywood protest, which was beautiful because it was different format. Like right now we're starting to see all the different forms of like protest and demonstrations and rallies and community building. So that was a beautiful thing, I think, for the community to like come around. And then by that weekend, we had a meeting. There was about like 17 of us at that point, like really strong, that had showed up that week and all worked together. And we were like, okay, cool. So we're a group now, literally a week after.
That's how it started.
Yeah, that's how it started. And, you know, what's beautiful about it is that everyone in the group, one is like starting to find their place, and like, you know, life is shifting again, and unemployment's running out, and things, you know, are all happening. But what's beautiful is, despite anyone's like background or beliefs in the group, we all know that like something much bigger than us brought us all together.
Right.
So it's not like
Right.
one person who founded it. It's not like, no, we all founded this.
No,
We
it
all
was-
came together. We all showed up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, no, it's beautiful to like be working with people in this way and to like organize and unify and like go through these like really heavy life-changing experiences together. And we didn't know each other. Like maybe a few of us in the 17 like knew just because of LA, but like other than that, like no.
Yeah.
And it's a group of some really amazing people, artists, people ranging from, I think our youngest is 20.
20.
Maybe just turned 21, and then our oldest is like 35.
Yeah.
So
bunch of young people. Young people.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful photo you posted on Instagram, or was posted of you on Instagram. I don't know which. But you were carrying a woman on your back. Jenna?
God, you're a
Yeah,
strong
it was
woman.
that
I
is-
said that in the beginning, in the introduction.
Yeah.
You were
No,
sh-
that is like physically and
physically and
mentally.
I do the Culver City
emotionally.
stairs every morning.
Oh yeah. No, but
Only this morning.
that's such a powerful image.
yeah.
I mean, even if we didn't know you, and I saw that picture, I was like, damn, that could be like a picture, like a front page photo on like Time magazine or
That's
something.
I think that's
It
what
speaks
news
such
needs
volumes.
to find out about, like
Yeah.
all of this, and then share the power and the energy in these.
Yeah.
You know,
It kind of encapsulates everything that I feel like we're working towards. Like you pick up your fellow comrade, your friend, your ally, and you keep on pushing forward and fighting that good fight despite the hardships and what have you.
Yeah, thank you. It was a beautiful photo and a beautiful moment, and like, there's a lot of opinions about marching and the groups and all the things that are happening right now. But ultimately, like my group in specific, we, for at least the first month, were out weekly, if not daily, if not every other day, or a few times a week. Like I remember after the first 2 weeks, like there's 4 women and the rest are men in the group, and the women, we've been the ones like kind of chanting and screaming and like doing the things on with the community that marches with us.
Yeah.
And I remember just like talking as a group, and even people who weren't like directly like chanting in the bullhorn, all of us just like would go to sleep, and we'd like feel ourselves like still on the back of the Jeep, like going backwards. So we'd like feel and hear like the protest songs just like recycling in our head. Like it was a true, like I don't even want to necessarily call it trauma, but it was definitely something in our brains
visceral.
that were, And so when that image happened, maybe that was like 2 months ago, maybe 2 months in, and we had a downtown protest after, I can't think of his last name, first name Josh though, our friend that was in a wheelchair that got assaulted by the cops and got put in jail and like torn from his wheelchair in the middle of downtown. We marched for him, and he was with us that day, and it was just hot, and we were all tired. Like we want to keep showing up, but like at that point things were like needing to shift. There's just so much, and it was like kind of one of those pinnacle times where like what we see happening now, right, especially in South LA, like that was kind of like the beginning. Like, oh, cops are really out here assaulting people. Okay, so it was another like energetic shift. So at that point, like Jenna was super tired. We're all tired. And I just saw her, and I was like, I got you, girl. Come here. I'm going to take you to the shade. Like, let's go. She's also like really tiny. So
I figured. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You put her on your back, and
it's love, yo.
It's
like
love.
we're out here, like all of us. Even if it wasn't someone in my group, like
you would have done.
I would have done that, because it's just I really want to treat people how like I would want to be treated. Like if I fell over in the streets because like I'm dehydrated, or I can't scream anymore, or I get shot, God forbid, by the cops, like I would want, it's like the most human nature thing we can do is to like take care of one of our own.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will do that plenty of more times.
Just mention or get a shot. Like that's like the extreme. Like you wake up in the morning and you're going to these protests, knowing that your life is at risk as well. What pushes you?
Well, I just don't really. I'm the type of person I don't necessarily fear death. Like, energy never dies, and that's all that we are. So even if I'm not in this form, like,
you keep fighting.
Yeah, you know, but either way, yeah, I can't, one, that keeps me going. Like, this, I don't have, like, necessarily a fear of death. I can't say that if I'm, like, on my deathbed or looking death in the eye, I'm not going to be like, you know, like, I can't say that. No. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I will say I don't carry or feed that general fear. And also, too, like, knowing, and I think I've been consciously preparing for this and for these times, not necessarily with like mad detail, but just in general, like, knowing from fairly early in life, about like 15, 16, that, like, you know, how I was supposed to show up in the world was a little bit out of the ordinary. And so, like, when opportunities like this present itself, or I just, like, show up at the front of a protest, you know, like, I know that I'm a vessel, and that I have, I like to believe that I have some purpose and some destiny, and so, like, that carries me.
And
like,
you're not a passive person either.
Drive.
You're not someone who is comfortable sitting on the sidelines for
Right.
too long anyway.
Right.
Like, you are someone
when
who,
someone is hurting.
who gets in front.
I have too many tools.
Exactly.
I have too many
right.
tools to, like, keep them to myself. Like,
Yeah.
that, like, and that's the thing. Like, I could be the most scared person. I could fear death, all these things, but I'm definitely,
It
like,
won't stop you.
it won't stop me, like, because I know, like, I can't live my life being like, oh, you know, all these things that you went through were for nothing. You know, and I don't want other people to, like, have to think that either. You know, like, we can all take and draw up on our experiences to show up now in this revolution in different ways.
Right.
And, like, create a massive toolbox for all of us. I feel like I want to count how many times we said tool.
Oh God, I can do that.
Oh, tools.
Tools.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
gonna put like a little ticker.
A little
The
ticker.
tool
A
episode.
tool ticker.
Tool.
But yeah.
Yeah.
That definitely is what keeps me going.
Yeah.
It's been 4 months since you guys have started, you know, this group, and you're marching, peacefully protesting, and strategizing, and educating, and, you know, building our communities. Have you counted any signs of change, or hope that anything is going to change in the near future, or you feel like, how do you see the, you know?
This is, I don't know how this is going to sound, but I'm going to say it.
That's okay.
I think there's small little shifts every single day, you know? Like, I can see, if I see one person shift perspective, that's amazing, because we don't know what that one person, the reach that they have.
Right.
On an energetic realm, or even just in the physical world. Like, you know, I don't know you, and, like, we share a moment in the revolution on the street somewhere,
and then I go,
and you go, right, like, we ripple. So I think changes are happening every day. I think just as the same amount of, like, turmoil and trauma that we're experiencing, whether we can see it or not, there is an equal amount of light and love happening as well. And that's just my personal belief, but also too, like, I quite frankly don't even focus on hope right now. It's not a time to focus on, like, being hopeful. Like, for what? You know, like, what, like, I think it's a time to organize. I think it's a time to strategize. I think it's a time, I would rather be faithful than hopeful. You know, like, hope can dissipate like that, but, like, faith for me is rooted in something stronger, or belief, right? Belief is directly related. If I hope, I'm leaving it up in suspension, right? Like,
So,
I hope this will happen. So the universe is like, okay, you hope this will happen, versus, like, no, universe, this is what I need to happen, and this is what I want to happen, like, and this is how I plan to make it happen.
Well, that goes back to the passive, what I was just talking about
Right.
with you. Like, I understand what you're talking about in terms of there's action to be taken, you know, and to go back to our toolbox, like, you have those tools to do the thing, and saying you're hopeful, that's like putting it into somebody else's hands.
Right.
That's just like, maybe I'm not equipped to do that. Maybe I'll just help or have somebody else do it.
Right.
I see what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I think hope is, like, a nice word, and it's really sweet. And I think some people need hope. But me just personally, like, I can't focus on, like, hoping for anything right now. Like, I I think intention, for me, I would prefer to use the word intention. I'm very intentional about what I want to see happen.
Yes.
And I have really strong beliefs as to what I think will happen.
Yes.
But I'm definitely playing on this side of like, I know that it is the actual revolution.
I feel like hope, yes, hope is a big word. That's how I would like, at least for me, that's what I would think, is that hope is the outcome, is the big word. But underneath hope, there's all the attention, there's faith, there are beliefs. But knowing that hope is more, I feel like people can see, or even attention or beliefs, you can believe in other people, can believe that somebody else is going to change your life, or like if you take hope, from me, at least for me, if you take hope as something, as a tool, I'm gonna say the tool again, but as something that like when you're being hopeful, I feel like people use it in a way like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sit and that's gonna happen. But I think that's the wrong way of being hopeful.
Right. I mean, it takes away like accountability.
It takes, but
it takes the agency away from it.
Yes. But people can also use the faith also in a wrong way, that way too. Oh, I have faith in this, that's it, and then I sit back there and that's it. Yeah. But all these words are words that helps our intentions, like you said, our everyday's moves, the way we behave in the world, because we have better, we have hope for our own future, not anybody else, but what I'm working towards is gonna get me there, and that's the hope. But also, if I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit home, not do anything, and whatever thing is gonna happen somewhere, and my life is, then that's the wrong way of using those words.
I understand what you're saying completely. I think right now the narrative that I want to push in regards to this, it's like, I think people have hoped for a really long time. I think hope is something that like the church teaches us. I think hope is also used as a scapegoat to like not take responsibility for like knowing that we are co-creators of our reality, right?
Yeah.
So like I could talk to people about being hopeful and like looking towards a better future and charge and hope this and hope that, like that's awesome. And I definitely think some people would feel better. However, I think right now more than anything, like people truly have to be like, okay, cool, I can hope all day long, but what am I actually going to do to get my hope? What are my
and also, even if you're teaching it too,
right?
I think it also comes from the preaching side of it. If you are the one saying it to people, you're teaching them about that hope, then you have to also give them the details on how to get to the hope.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
Yeah, so that's how I would think. Like if I am the one who's like going, if I'm a preacher in the church or whatever, I would. I feel like if I'm have hope, then educate them, teach them on how to get to what they are being hopeful, and do the things that are going to get them to where you hope them to be as well. Because
I like the tool that some teachers use where, or at least in my world, right? If I'm like imagining myself as like this teacher, and I was talking about hope or wanting to teach hope, I would still, I don't even know how much I would like bring it up. I would almost want to leave hope up to. Like, I would want the concrete actions and the tools that people could use to get to that. I would want them feeling. Yeah, I would want them to see that they can do these things to then elicit hope. Because if I tell them, hey, do these things and you'll be hopeful, right? Or you'll hold on to hope by doing this, and then they get to the end of that and there's no hope. They're going to be like...
I think hope, hope is a feeling, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's a feeling and doing things that makes people feel hopeful.
Right.
That it's a feeling, because you can't just say that, you gotta have hope.
Right.
No, but you do things that makes them.
You have to have hope.
You have to have hope, and then you're gonna make it. Yeah. But doing things, or for ourselves, knowing that, okay, I have to do this to get there. It's really a feeling of there.
Yeah.
you know, I don't know if that, but if you don't give people that feeling of getting there, then there's really no hope.
Yeah, for sure. You know, words, semantics. It's like fascinating.
It's probably making you wonder that I'm saying it in.
No. You're saying it exactly right. It's just I love the question because it's something that came up for me. I mean, obviously, in the last couple of months.
Are you actually losing hope?
No, not at all. Actually, the other night, my friend said, "Wow, you're very hopeful towards the future." I was like, "I'm not hopeful towards the future. I just think that we're capable of like building a new foundation."
Right.
And if you want to claim that as hopeful, great. But like, I don't really call it that. Like, I just call it.
No, that's a really good way to look at it though, because it's particularly now people are questioning like, what can I do? Blah blah blah. Like, I hope for a better future. I hope that things get better.
But then what can I do?
But people right now, absolutely, people are searching. Like a lot of people actively searching for things that they can actually do. And when you give that message that you can be hopeful, but first you need to do something. There is action that needs to be had.
So this is taught behavior.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna bring it up earlier, something you said, but just in our conversation about like Texas and you know, like coming from the church and all of these things, like it used to frustrate me so much when I was a little girl being in church and like, you know, hearing the pastor or hearing like elders be like, oh yeah, just, you know, hold on to hope, or God's gonna take care of it, or like just this, like,
I have a huge conflict with that.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, or like even the question of like, well, why is this happening to me? And I'm just like, it confused me then and it confuses me now, because you know, like, to your point, concrete, tangible ways to whether you're eliciting hope, whether you want to elicit love, whether you want to elicit forgiveness, no matter what these things, like I think the learned behavior is, okay, person right here, you want X over here, great.
What steps do you need?
Right, but people don't want to talk about the steps. People don't want to talk about the work, because that inner work is everything that we've talked about this whole podcast, right?
Yeah.
The tears and the sweat and the blood and the showing up and the dehydration and the whatever, you know, or the like, I'm self-sabotaging and I'm going to keep doing it. You know,
God
like,
is going to take care of it.
Right, exactly. Like all of those things are in the middle of, you know, these like feelings that we want to like bring upon ourselves, but yet, you know, like we have to ground it back. Like,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
You know,
I think like the whole message, excuse me, the whole mission about what we're trying to do with this podcast and starting these conversations is that people want to jump from A to Z. Right?
Yeah.
But these conversations shed light. And it may be hard to hear, hard to digest, but we're focusing not on the A to Z, but the B to Y.
Right.
Or the B to Z.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the steps in between. What can you do?
What can you do
to get to the point that you want to get to? Everybody has a goal. Everybody has hope for something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
But then
you know,
what steps? Yeah.
Right. What's beautiful though about especially what you guys are doing, and I think anything that anybody could do right now, is continue to hold space for conversation. Because intuitively, right, like humans are magnificent. We can heal ourselves. We have wild, crazy, beautiful intuition. Like a lot of people actually got tools, and a lot of people actually know what to do. But what people
not as loud as the people who don't have the tools.
Well, that but just needing to just talk.
Yeah.
Literally just needing to be like, I'm feeling this and I want to feel like the victim for just a few seconds because this is really hard. Yeah. Like literally people just wanting to talk about it and to like feel seen, heard, cared for. Yeah. But like to just feel seen and heard, giving that gift to somebody.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, is like great. That will equip them in hope all you want.
That's 50% of the work right there.
Yeah.
Just open your mouth, talk.
It is.
Want to elicit hope in people, just hear them. You know, just hear them, show up in your humanness with them, cry with them, you know, like, because then they'll go home feeling hopeful that, wow, there's somebody out there. If there's one person out there that can see me, hear me, feel me, and whether they disagree or agree with me, like, I feel like I shared a part of myself today. So therefore I am hopeful. Right. Yeah. You know, like, so I think that's more a tangible way that I like do elicit hope and keep hope for myself. But mostly I just don't focus on it.
I'm so happy you said that. I was curious if you were going to give like a yes or no with like a little bit of explanation, I'm really happy you went
You
down.
went down,
You went down that
Yeah.
road.
because it really helps like for us to discuss about that, you know,
Right.
those things in detail and understand it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like I grew up in a church as well. It sounds like you grew up in a church too. Alex
in
did.
Texas, of course we did.
Texas.
Yeah, and I think for me, what got me out of church, I was a teenager already, and actually I grew up in church not because of my family. I chose it,
Yeah.
and I lived through it. And then when I was a teenager, well, there were just things that were not sinking in with me, and there was a lot of untruth things were being told to me, and or I will see how people are living their lives in church, or my fellow singers who are, you know, like they calling, you know, it was just like that, like it was almost like a bubble for me, and I felt like it was a life, more things outside that church, and there was a lot of fear for me when I was there and in church, and I remember just being terrified of even the word God,
Yeah.
like terrified. I was like, if an angel sins 7 times a day, who am I? I'm gonna go to hell. I'm gonna be burning for the rest of my life. It was a terrible feeling for
Right.
me.
Right.
And then I get out, I started learning myself, like understanding spirituality, reading that Bible for myself, not
Right.
even waiting for someone else to read it for me and tell me a few things they think I need to hear from the Bible.
Right.
Sorry, that,
Keep on going.
I'm just getting, I'm just like, shit.
Shots fired.
No. And then I realized I haven't been told the full truth of really
Right.
life. Just
Yeah.
like, you know, I want to learn about life. I want to know why I'm here. And not, you know, not just walk on somebody else's words. And I feel like it's hard, especially in the world, because there's a lot of groups of it's almost like we're talking about religion, but it's like,
Are we not allowed to?
no, we can.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
yeah, it's all, we talk about all cultures.
Okay, cool.
It's not like one culture, whatever.
Gotcha.
But it's more like, for me, when I started going, like, if I had a friend who was a Muslim, or I had a friend who's Catholic or Christian, I would go to their church. And that's when I realized, wait a minute, these people are actually fighting for nothing. Like, we're all praying literally the same God. We're all looking for happiness. Like the institution, church shit. Oh, say God, cut that out.
No.
The institution thing,
Yeah.
the church institution, they just have their own agenda. It's like a politics. And why am I have
They the same.
They're just like,
person.
yeah, they're the same person, and they're trying to recruit people, and that
Yeah.
they're doing it so wrong. I was like, you know what? I'm my own person. I'm gonna be me. Not all of this,
Right.
but
I feel that.
yeah.
Yeah, I had similar experiences and ultimately decided, like, whatever God I came from, creator I came from, does not want me to fear it.
No.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm not, like, I come from it. I am it. I am a,
Yes.
you know, like,
Right.
I think heaven and hell are earthly things. You can
Yeah.
decide to create that and be that your reality, whatever you want. There's people literally
Yes.
living in hell right now. Every single
yeah.
day outside.
Yeah.
But there's people who are in bliss, who are in heaven, despite what's going on around them.
Yeah.
You know?
I think, go back to religion really quick. It's more, I think on the baseline level, it's good just because it teaches people to be spiritual and to look inwards. But I think almost very quickly, and particularly in our experience in Baptist Methodist churches, super mega churches, by the way, in Texas, that are like the size of malls sometimes.
And like pastors are like DJs.
Yeah,
and, like,
and that it becomes
commercial.
a commercial thing. It becomes more exploitative,
More like a business.
more of a business, especially
Right.
that. So, I forgot what I was going with it, but on a baseline level, I think religion and the community is good, right?
It creates a
But
community, yeah.
that's why I personally have tuned out of the traditional religious circles and, did the education for myself.
Right.
Yeah,
you know?
and believing that God is good. If God is good, and doing my best to do good, then I'm really accomplishing what God wants from me.
Right.
You know, if you know that those little
it sets
things,
you on your own journey as
it
well.
does.
Yeah, your
You
own
know,
journey of truth.
Absolutely, and that could
Right.
far go way farther than what the church can traditionally offer within its four walls.
And I think that's what you see happening now as well, especially in California. I haven't been back to Texas in a little bit and like been immersed in the culture, but you know, people feeling like, okay, now there's more than even just this like church thing. And like that is with We the Movement, but also with just my what I'm personally wanting to build in life is really a space where people can come explore mind, body, spirit, a big ass toolbox for people to literally come and have a safe space to feel seen, heard,
feel themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And like, cool, let's take the same structure in the sense of like, you know, there's some people in the world who need to be told like what to do and like given structure essentially, and that's fine. Not everyone is equipped to.
Yeah, we don't have to all be the same.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Right. But I would much rather create and give people structure that is useful and rooted in actual universal truth versus like keep feeding people BS.
Because it feeds you.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
And it doesn't force you to do your own work.
No,
Correct.
To be able to give yourself a foundation that's equipped with the tools. That I think is the most valuable thing that a human can go through and to put themselves in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Life.
Right.
Life, yo.
Life, I swear.
Wait, I have
You have a question?
I have one more question. Well, it's written here.
Okay.
But we've pretty much gone through the other ones.
Okay, cool.
And I know that camera has stopped like 40 minutes ago.
But we still
That's
have,
okay. Yeah, we still have this footage.
Wait, we've been talking for an hour?
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
probably
this one,
talked 30
hour
minutes.
7.
we all talk a lot. That's great.
Yeah, that's cool.
I got triggered by that religion.
No, I know. I could see. I saw this
You
little
saw that
vein.
trigger?
I'm like, oh,
These motherfuckers.
shit, she about to go off.
I don't even know where the English comes from when I got triggered.
No, that's okay. God was.
Oh, that's super funny.
Go ahead, spit, girl, spit. But what was this? Yeah. So going back to young people, I'll let you finish.
Oh no, we're good. Some eucalyptus.
But going back to young people and their own activism. So 3 weeks ago, we talked to a man named Andre Lavelle.
Okay.
Now he is of an older generation. I want to say older. He's like 40, mid 40s probably. But his perspective on activism. He has kids. He has a family. He has his own life in Dallas. But he's still very active in terms of protesting in his own way, right, to the best of his ability,
right,
which best suits his lifestyle and his family. In contrast, when speaking to our generation, the younger generation, people who are more able to be out in the streets or start a podcast, talk about it, have their own communities, whatever that activism looks like to them, why do you, in your mind, why do you think it's so important for young people right now to use their voices, to use their tools, to spread their voice and to further their purpose?
It's for me, it's pretty simple. You know, like each generation has the generation of revolutionaries. You know, people that are willing and have the energy and the capacity and the tools and the experiences to show up in that way. So, like, you know, it was the students back in the 60s, and it's the students and a little bit older now. And I think that's another important thing that people got to realize too, kind of going back to our hope conversation. Like, you know, it's taken how long to even just get here? So, like, you know, what are we really actually intentionally thinking we can accomplish and make happen? And what bridges can we actually build in our lifetime before we get burned out, before we get pregnant, or before whatever happens? Right. You know, like, it's gonna be so important that our generation and a little bit younger than us are showing up now, so we can then build the bridges that people will take when we have kids. You know, like we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing now if our parents like didn't do what they did in the 60s and the 70s, you know? So it's the same thing. It's really just about like honoring the cycles that we naturally go through and like trying to do better each time and get a little bit further each time, right? Pass another torch each time. Because, you know, like I think what we want to see, the change that we want, we're going to see aspects of that in our lifetime, because I think we're a really powerful generation. And we have a lot of people fighting for us. And I think like with the power of social media, you know, activism has never looked or been this way.
That's true.
So we really have the upper hand in a lot of ways right now. However, you know, think about the amount of time it has taken, not even just in the last 100 years, but just like in the history of America, how many times this cycle or versions of this cycle have like repeated itself. And, you know, just how much energy alone has been put into that and been put into these agendas that we see unfolding is the same amount of energy and love and light and fight and fire and passion that we're going to have to put in to things to actually like invert a little bit. Right. So I don't know what's achievable in this lifetime. I got goals with We the Movement, and I have goals in my own personal life that I think will be able to benefit the masses. You know, and if that doesn't happen,
you've done your part.
I've still done my part, because even if I just take, like, what's the story in the Bible? Did Moses ever get to see the Promised Land?
No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Podcast done.
That's true.
Did Martin Luther King see a black president? No.
You know, and so like, I think any revolutionary right now, anyone that has been doing the work that I'm part of doing, you know, we've all had to have that discussion with ourselves and with our groups or whomever. Yeah. You know, it's like the real, like actual reality of like, cool, when we go out there, we could really get hurt or get arrested or, you know, whatever. But also too, like, are you still going to keep showing up even if the outcome that you don't want,
you know,
happens? And my answer is like, heck yeah. What else am I do? I'm not going to go work a 9 to 5.
It's true.
I'm not going to like revert back to all the things that I've been like working so hard to get out of.
The opportunity to.
Right. Exactly.
And if it's clear to you, like a lot of people again don't feel like they have that pull or that the capability to be that impactful. But if you can, simple actions. Simple actions lead to those things, even if again you don't get the result that you wanted or you initially sought out seeking, but you know, it's the small things that make the differences.
Yeah, totally. I think, and again, back full circle to what we said in the beginning, or what I said was, you know, people right now need to agree to disagree. People need to like continue to go inward and find and accept how they are capable and how they're willing to like show up, you know, and if they're not okay with what they are able to give in the sense of showing up, then being willing to do the work to be able to like output more, or educate yourself, or you know, like the action steps right now are the most important. You know, we've done a lot of preparing, whether consciously or subconsciously, and you know, there is things to look forward to, but any of the things that we can imagine for the future, whether this is in our own individual lives or like in the collective,
future generations,
right? There's like you know, faith without works is dead.
Oh yeah.
You know? Yeah. Faith without works is dead.
What would be your message to those listening or the world? Like what does Arin want to share in a brief paragraph?
To not be afraid of fear and to push through the unknowns and to push through the hardships and know that they're necessary, or that they can be useful if you choose for them to be that, and to be graceful with yourself and graceful with other people, meaning, you know, for me, grace means finding forgiveness, and like being able to just let things roll off and wash off. And aside from that, just like show up how you can right now. And if you don't know how you can show up anyway and figure it out. And or ask somebody. But don't use this time to hide away completely. You know, use this time to really build with community and get clear about what you want and how you want to move forward in life and what you want to create and the reality that you want to see for yourself. And know that it's just okay. Like, everything's gonna be all right. You know, even if it's just for like a moment.
But it will.
You know.
Beautiful sentiments.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so
both.
much.
It was so much fun.
Thank you for sharing your heart with us, you know.
No problem. Anytime.
Welcome back, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on that episode. I hope you all learned as much as we did. I do hope you guys learned a little bit and took some stuff away, including maybe what you all can do to, once again, create the change that you all want to see in the world. But until next time, please stay tuned for our next episode.